street over there's a life I could have known, one beyond my wildest dreams. Maybe that road could have carried me to streets of gold. Things aren't always as they seem. Looking back on all the chances that I missed, some I held, some slipped away. One street over where my memories exist, I wonder what would change, I really couldn't say. In this life there's nothing certain, except the curtain that rises to the stage. Silly games of second guessing, I just forget the lessons that I couldn't learn. Because one street over there's a life I could have known, that would have kept me from the one I had today. Except the curtain that rises to the stage. Silly games of second guessing, I just forget the lessons that I couldn't learn. Because one street over there's a life I could have known, that would have kept me from the one I had today. From my home, cracked and broken asphalt everywhere. I could have ended up just like that broken road, with a dead end in my path. Thank the Lord that I've got more than that. In this life there's nothing certain, except the curtain that rises to the stage. Silly games of second guessing, I won't forget the lessons that I don't deserve. Because one street over there's a life I could have known, would have kept me from the one I love today.
Oh, good morning, Robinson County. How you doing? This is 1100 WSGI, you turn it on, and this is One Street Over, and happy Friday, happy Faith Friday. If you've been with the show very long, you know that this is a Christian broadcast facility, and we're so excited about what's going on here at Ebenezer Broadcasting. Ilya Maldonado, our president, they've just done an amazing job. You can just see people who come in that came on the show when I first started this, and I lose track about how long it's been. I think I'm in my 4th or 5th year doing this. It just, time sure does fly. But some folks that will come in that maybe were a part of it when we were in the other studio over at DBL, and Neil and Joe still own the place, and seeing the transformation of what they've done here is so cool, and they're just getting started, because this is a worldwide broadcast facility. If you've got something, I was talking to Asa, the young man that was on the show Tuesday. If you missed that, you need to go hear him. It was awesome. He will be back on. I've got to reach out to him and just kind of communicate with him the things that I would love to have him do with us. But anyway, Asa Brewer is his name, and Brewer's Corner. You need to go check out his podcast. And anyway, just the things that are possible from this facility is just cool. And if you want to be a part of it, reach out to Ilya Maldonado, talk to him, and say, hey, what can I do? What can I be a part of? If it's Jesus driven, it is welcome here. And so Anyway, with all that said, I really want to get Shannon Baumgartner in here. I reached out to her very late last night. It was so funny. My student, John Coey, that is on here watching the show very often in the morning, he asked me yesterday in class. He said, he always asked me about the show because he is coming on with his parents the last Friday of the month. And I'm excited about that because he's going to share his testimony. And he is so excited to do that. But he asked me, he goes, who are you having on tomorrow? Right? And I thought, I don't know. I forgot to book anybody. So anyway, with that said, I thought I'm going to reach out to Shannon. And of course, that's middle of the day and in school. And anybody who's ever taught or been around the education environment knows it's busy. I think one of the funniest things that happened whenever my friend Muriel Barnett, she's retiring this year. And I oftentimes, when I'm trying to figure out something, I go, what would Muriel do? And because she advises me a lot. And so I think it was one of my first day. She goes to church with me at Madison. We're dear friends. We've been friends for a long time. And I come walking into church, and she said something about, she goes, how are you doing? And I said, I guess I'm just so shocked. There's just no break. I can't turn my back on them. I can't leave. There's no place for me to just, go and get something out of my mailbox. If I don't check my mail during my planning time when I first get there, it just doesn't happen until the end of the day if I have time, because sometimes there's things after school, you got bus duty or you've got a staff meeting or something. And I said, I can't walk away. And she just laughed and she said, welcome to the education environment. And I got so tickled. So anyway, I don't know where I was going with that, but nonetheless, because I forgot to book anybody yesterday, because it occurred to me middle of the day when John mentioned it that I needed a guest for today. Well, so if you've been listening to the show, you know that I'm a part of the Celebrate Recovery community, in that when COVID was going on, we were tasked, I was still full-time at the Madison Church of Christ, and we were tasked with working from home. Well, I was like, what do I do? And so one of the things that I did is, because I had met Matt Driscoll and he had talked about Celebrate Recovery, I thought, that's a program that's run out of Saddleback Church. Everybody knows Rick Warren, Purpose Driven Life, all of those things. And so many of us have just really loved that. So I thought, okay, maybe I need to check that out for Madison. Maybe that'd be something good. And I talked to the elders about it and the different ones, the church leadership. I said, what do you think about this? And so I started going to the Epiphany Baptist Church, to their CR that's on Tuesday nights. Long story short, I've gotten involved with that. We brought it to Madison. We have it on Wednesday night. Epiphany has it on Tuesday night. There's something in my spirit that's always led me to feel that I'm a girl in the Church of Christ that felt the call to be a preacher, worship leader, all of those things as a very young child. I felt the call when a missionary visited our church when I was a little bitty, and I went and got my piggy bank, gave my money to my daddy for that missionary. And I remember very clearly, and if you've heard this before, forgive me, but I remember very clearly that call on my life, thinking that's what I'm supposed to do. Okay, that's what I'm supposed to do. And being a little afraid of that, because now remember too, I'm very close to my parents, super close to my parents, to the point that as a child, when they would travel, I would just get panicked, like they weren't going to come home. We lost Kenneth Pease, he was our farmhand, and I looked up to him like a brother. I truly did as a little girl. And when he didn't come back from Vietnam, it broke my heart and terrified me of military service and all those things. I remember when my brother was born, being frightened because I thought he's going to get drafted and have to go to war and he's going to die just like Kenneth did. And all of those things, right? So it scared me a bit, that calling on my life to be a missionary, because this guy was a foreign missionary. And I can remember as a child thinking, man, yeah, I don't know if I want to do that. That's scary, but that's what I'm supposed to do. And I don't know, just at one point, getting this presence of like, oh, I'm a girl. They won't let me do that. So I don't have to do that. Right? Wow, was I wrong? And so that is a big piece of my journey, is trying to figure out all of that, right? So, and I told Bill Jones was in here one day, and I said, I've always tried to figure out what my calling on my life is, and I've just in my spirit felt to ask questions, to constantly ask questions, and so that's a piece of my calling. But I've always still felt that worship leading. I sing. I love music. I've tried to play instruments over the course of my lifetime, but I was talking with one of the guys in the Epiphany band last night, and Mikey, and I said, and he's an amazing guitar player. If you've not been to hear these guys, they're just amazing musicians, amazing, all the guys. And we were talking about my journey with music, and I said, I had an amazing piano teacher, my Aunt Ruby, who played in her church. I took guitar lessons, guys, from Herb Chapman, that's Stephen Curtis Chapman's daddy, okay? Stephen has given me guitar lessons, and I still can't play the guitar. And I don't know Stephen well. We grew up in the same area. He would fill in for his dad if his dad was out, that kind of thing. So I don't want to make it any more than it is. But we've stayed in touch over the years, and we know each other. But again, his dad, Herb Chapman. So anyway, I still can't play. I've tried to pick up mandolin. I just don't have I don't have that thing that just says, this is something that I'm really driven to do, but I love to sing. And I mean, who in Nashville doesn't sing? I mean, really, there are a dime a dozen. But I've always loved spiritual music, and I've always thought, maybe that's a little piece of something that I'm supposed to do. Not about me getting up and performing, but me being a part of worshiping and helping people to lead in worship. Well, the Epiphany Praise Band, they've allowed me to come in and be a part of that. And so we practice on Thursday nights. So I'm out very, very late last night with them, and we went super late last night. I've had about 4.5 hours sleep, but that's okay, because I just love that they're letting me come play in the sandbox, and just kind of figure out this piece of what I feel God, really putting on my life to do. So I messaged Shannon, I don't know, 8 o'clock last night, 8:30, and I heard from her this morning. She goes, I just saw this, so I can't come. And I had pretty much figured that out this morning, so we will get Shannon in here. We'll figure it out. But and just a programming note, I will not be here Robertson County spring break. I'm taking off from school. I'm taking off from radio. Lee Marie's going to fill in, but I'm going to try to kind of, I don't know. I'm going to have some time with God, just kind of going, okay, help me get my life a little more organized, because I've got a lot of things going on that I really feel Him calling me to, but I got to get organized. I mean, it's just I've got so much clutter in my life. I so much time wasted trying to find stuff, So anyway, with all that said, I wake up this morning and I'm okay. I don't have anything. Of course, it's already 12 after, and y'all know me. I can just go and go. Anyway, so I wake up this morning and I think, okay, what am I going to do this morning? Bill Jones is always willing, to come in and talk with me. And I started to give him a call, and I just thought, I don't know what God's saying to me this morning. So as I do, because of Shannon put this on me to give God my first fruits, to do something, to listen to music, to pray, to be silent, to listen to sermons, do something, give it to Him first thing in the morning. So my husband, he is the safety coordinator for the buses, so he leaves very early in the morning. So once he's out of the house, I'm always looking for a sermon or something like that to come up to listen to. And I just accidentally stumbled across Jonathan Roumie. If you do not know who Jonathan Roumie is, oh my goodness, you need to go and get The Chosen and watch it. And I'm a little jealous, because if you haven't found The Chosen, you've got something you can watch for a while, and it's just breathtaking. I've watched it over and over and over and over and over. But I found his testimony, and I found it because there's a lot of publicity out right now for the Jesus Revolution movie. Jonathan is one of the leads in that, along with Kelsey Grammer, and that's a story I did not know. As I'm learning more about it, I understand it because it happened in the early 70s. I was born in 62, so this is at the time. It wasn't long after Kenneth had died. I'm a very impressionable young person. I couldn't stand the hippies, okay? absolutely could not stand the hippie movement because of the way they treated the Vietnam veterans. I had a overwhelming disdain for the hippie movement, right? So growing up in West Kentucky, the prominent, it was Baptist and Church of Christ, prominent, for the most part. Now there was, I forget what Aunt Ruby and them were. I think they might have been Methodist. I'm not sure. There was a Catholic community, Fancy Farm, still a Catholic community, but Church of Christ and Baptist, I mean, we were almost like a sports rival. It's like, I'm not kidding. I mean, it just really was. But okay, so I mean, I'll go down a rabbit hole again. But anyway, I want to make some points here before Gwen comes in here, because I really want you to go and listen to Jonathan Rumey's testimony. Go and listen to it. First, also go and watch the movie Jesus Revolution. I have not watched it yet. I'm speaking to myself. I'm looking in the mirror. I will watch it this weekend, because I just think I really need to, because I remember what they called, it was the Jesus freak movement. It was like, oh, peace, love, and Jesus. And it was mocked really by many in the church as not being upright. Okay? And so many things that I was a kid, was like, oh, that's bad. And if you know anything about the character that Jonathan plays in this, he had a really rough journey on this earth. And you'll hear his story. Don't discount what he did to bring people to Christ because of anything that's going on in his journey. He was a very broken human that struggled with a lot of things, and just see the movement that came out of that. The first interview that I stumbled across again this morning was one where they were interviewing Jonathan and the director from the Jesus Revolution, and they held up a Time magazine from 1971, which had, I guess, and I didn't get to look at it really closely, but I'm guessing it was this character that Jonathan's playing, and again, his name is escaping me right now, but maybe on the cover, I'm not really sure. I'm going to have to look into it a little bit more. But they were talking about the movement in the early 70s. And again, I remember it as a kid and thinking that it was, looked down upon. And that was kind of one of the things that was used to quiet the church, because we didn't want to be associated with that Jesus freak movement, right? And I can remember whenever we would talk about faith, it's like, well, we're absolutely people of faith, but we don't want to be overzealous. Maybe, I don't know. It was just kind of this feeling. And I've heard people in politics. I've heard, honestly, a very famous talk show host that's still alive and today and very, very big. And I'm not going to call him out because I don't think he really meant it this way, because I know he's a believer. But he said, and I've heard others say this that are believers that have a very big platform, say, well, I believe, and but I don't wear my faith on my sleeve. And I say to anybody who says that, dear brother, dear sister, you've not been called to wear it on your sleeve. You've been called to write it on your forehead and to put it on your doorpost and to wear it very boldly, because the world's got to see it. But there was kind of a atmosphere of not really being out there and pushing your faith, because, well, we don't want to be thought of as a hippie, and in that hippie movement, in that Jesus freak movement. And if you remember, that was just within the decade of Madeline O'Hare getting prayer kicked out of the school. So it was a perfect pot of neglect of our faith from the church community, from our organized churches, right? So that's my background as a kid. So I'm very curious about this movie. I want to go see this because as I was listening to them talk about the movie, it just echoed so much that I remember from my childhood. So I'm really anxious to see that. But then after I watched the interview, and it's like a little 6-minute interview with Jonathan and the gentleman that directed that. So go and see that. Watch The Chosen if you haven't. Oh my goodness, we're on the cusp of revival, guys. If you haven't figured that out, we are seeing revival across the globe. People like Christy McClellan and Jonathan Rumey, and I'm going to tell you a little connection here in just a minute between those two. I hope they've met. Because there's something that they're very connected with that I don't know if they realize. But anyway, so I go from the interview with Jonathan and the director, and it pops up. You know how YouTube will go, if you like this, you'll like this. And it went to Jonathan's testimony. So I shared that. And if you have not, it's Jonathan Rumi, Testimony on Divine Mercy. Wow, 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 wow. It is so good. And you need to go and watch that, because if you are a fan of The Chosen and of Jonathan Rumi, you need to go hear his story. It is so stinking cool. And there were so many things that he mentioned in it, so many things that echoed my own story, which anytime, the reason why I love Celebrate Recovery so much, because it's definitely a place to help people that are dealing with addiction, but it's a place to help all of us deal with just who we are called to be in Jesus Christ and how we fail. Yeah, we're human. And that's why they're saying that if you've got hurts, habits, and hangups, which you all do, we all need to be. The Celebrate Recovery community is what the early church was called to be. I believe it with all my heart. And that's what we're doing when we come together. And you can find it all over the place. Just get the app and just go find a group of believers, because what you're doing is you're going to see people coming in and sharing their testimony, which we are called to do, to confess our sins to each other so we can pray for each other and so we can be healed, because it's through my brokenness and my willingness to lay it at the throne of God that others are healed because of the journey that I've been through. And so I heard so much of that in Jonathan's testimony, because he has been called to be an artist, to be an actor. And he talks about his journey living in LA, and I've heard him bits and pieces of this, but to hear it just in its entirety in this piece is just so good. But he talks about being in LA and having been there for, 7 years and he was working, I think, 7 jobs. And I kind of get that feeling, because there's been times in my life I've had 5. I think the year that my husband had his, he had some health issues, and when all of that was kind of coming to fruition, and he was not working, and I was the only one working. I had my radio income. I was teaching part time at Good Pasture. I also was an adjunct that year at Lipscomb. I was selling Monavie, which was a network marketing thing. There was one other one, and I can't remember what it was, but I had 5 income, W-2s or whatever that you have for the IRS. I forget what all the different forms are called, but I had 5 different declarations of income that I had to share with the IRS that year. And so I could understand a piece of that. Right now, I have photography, I have teaching, I have radio, and I have the church. So I got 4. So, and it's a bit exhausting at times. I love all of it, but it's a bit exhausting. And so he was saying, he goes, I was just falling on my face before God. And I was like, oh man, Lord, what do you want from me? What do you want me to do? If you don't want me to be an artist, then lift it off of my spirit. And that's something anybody who loves the arts, if you're a writer, if you do music, if you're a speaker, if you do the things that, if you radio, if you do the things that are hard to make a living at, let's just, but you feel it in your spirit, and trying to find your place in God's call on your life with all of that, it's hard. And so you go, okay, God, if you don't want me, if you don't want me to be a part of music, take that desire out of my spirit, and when it's still there, that's what so I've always had that, right? So I get that. And he was talking about how, if I'm not supposed to be an actor, Lord, lift it off of me. And he'll tell you in that story, just the miraculous signs and things that happened in his life that ended up him being in The Chosen, just profound. And I'll tell you, the connection with Christy McClellan is so interesting, because he some of the things he was doing led to being a part of a nonprofit that's named for G.K. Chesterton. But and I forget exactly, because I have never studied the man. I only know the man's name through Christy McClellan, because her little dog is named after Chesterton or Chesterson. I forget how it is. And I'm sure all you theological people out there are screaming at me and telling me who it is. Maybe somebody will put it up in comments. But anyway, so their nonprofit is named for the same person who Christy named her little puppy after. And so there's just like this, it's just that little connection that if she doesn't realize that he's part of a nonprofit named for her just spiritual hero. They need to get together because, my goodness, are they part of just the leadership of the revival that is moving across the globe? Oh, my goodness. And it's so stinking cool. So anyway, that's one thing you're going to get out of the testimony, right? But one of the other things that I've just got to say just blew my mind about his testimony is, okay, he's Egyptian. He's Egyptian and Irish. Rumi is one of the Egyptian names, and if you've been listening very long, you know I've got a strong connection to the Egyptian community. I love the Egyptian community in Nashville is enormous. It is enormous. And whenever I left the Blaze, I got into Nashville, and it was at the time when the Coptic Christians had just been slaughtered on the beach, right? It was right after that. And so I just felt very pulled to that community. It didn't have any idea what a Coptic Egyptian was, had no clue, didn't have any clue. So when I get back to Nashville, and Gwen had just started working, trying to help rescue that community. Okay, there was a push, right? And it broke my heart to have to not be there during that time because I really wanted to be, but that wasn't God's calling on my life. He wanted me back here, so that's good. And Glenn even said that to me. You know, he says, you're supposed to be back in Tennessee. And I believe he believed that with all his heart. So, and it's all good. It was hard. It was hard because I loved what I was doing there, but I didn't like Texas. I really didn't. I wanted to be back home with my family. So anyway, that's not beside the point. So all of that was happening with the Egyptian Christians, the Coptic Christians. And so when I get back to town, a friend of mine said, you need to meet a friend of mine who is a Coptic Christian, and he's wanting help teaching newcomers to the country English. And I don't have anything else to do. I was like, okay, that sounds fun. So I met those guys, and that led us to about 2 years of spending a lot of our free time, my husband and I both, going into the Egyptian community over just off Murfreesboro Road, Thompson Lane area. Millwood was the name of the complex at the time, and there was a little store. My friend Fatty owned the store, and if you come to my house, the little chocolate lab, we rescued him from Fatty had him one night, and his son had this dog that his brother had given him, and they couldn't get it housebroken. It was just a little tiny puppy, right? And so I'm in there teaching a class one night, and I had a whole class full of women that we're teaching English to, and they don't like, a lot of the newcomers are not fans of domesticated dogs. I think because there must be, somebody told me there's a lot of wild, there's dogs that just kind of roam the streets in some areas, and they're not nice, and a lot of them have been bitten. They're just afraid of dogs in large part when they first get here. So Fatty's son comes walking in with this little chocolate lab. Or actually, no, Fatty brought the dog in first. And the girls just freak out that I'm working with in the class. And so I immediately take the dog, put it in my lap, and I'm petting it. And Fatty, very quickly, he's wanting me to take the puppy. And I had several dogs at the time. I'm like, I can't take this dog. And then as he started talking to my translator, they were going to take it to the pound. And I was like, no, you're not. I'll keep the dog. And so I bring it home. My husband keeps it. That's where my little chocolate lab came from. So anyway, this is all connected. I've got a dear, dear relationship with the Egyptian community. Still have several of those families that I'm very close to. And then when I find out Jonathan is half Egyptian, my heart just soared. I was like, oh, that's so cool. And so I love that connection. But as he's talking in the first part of his testimony, he talks about religious icons, okay? So let's take this back to my upbringing. I grew up Church of Christ, a community. There was a lot of Baptists, all that. We had a Catholic community, Fancy Farm, near us. So we were always taught that the icons and all the things, we were told when we were little, we should not wear a cross because that means you're Catholic. Okay, again, I was born in the 60s, but that was, and still, okay, down in the Baja, where we go to do mission work in El Rosario, that is the Rosary, right? There was a Catholic influence that helped develop that part of the Baja, and there's all kinds of old missions and things like that. And still, some of the people who we work with within the Baja Mission organization, they do not want to display a cross because that means they're Catholic. They were going, the building that we built in El Rosario, we asked our preacher at the time, can we put a cross on it? And he's like, well, they'll think we're a Catholic church. And we're like, it's just all Jesus. But again, you've got to be respectful of the area and all of those things. So that's how I grew up. Icons were connected to the Catholic Church. You didn't display them, didn't use them. That's a graven image. You can't use all of those things, right? So I've never really had an understanding of it. I have come to display icons and different things because of my friends that are Egyptian, because they keep bringing me stuff back from Egypt. I've got just several beautiful things that they've brought me that are icons that I just treasure. And I wear crosses all the time. I've got the cross I have on my wrist is because of my Egyptian friends. This is a thing. Whenever they first started becoming Christians 2,000 years ago, the Egyptian people, it was very common. There was a lot of slaves, and if you were a slave, the name of your slave owner was written on your wrist. And they said, no, we belong only to Jesus. And they started 2,000 years ago putting a cross on their right wrist because that's the hand of favor. And again, they believed that the thief that was saved was to the right of Christ and all of those things. So they put this cross on their wrist. So if you see a cross, and theirs is usually very rudimentary, almost like one that you would, the green ink and things like that, and it almost looks like a little plus sign because that's the Orthodox cross is that's what it looks like. So if you see that, that is probably a Coptic Christian or somebody like me that's just friends with them is like, can I have one too? And so anyway, the icons are very important to them. And I was always taught as a kid that is a graven image. I can remember when we were in New Orleans, right after Katrina, we went down there on a mission to help clean out houses. We were at this one lady's house and just everything was destroyed. It was just awful. But out in the back yard, she had the Mother Mary. You've seen it in the Catholic yards where they'll have this like little altar kind of thing looking. And I just felt very compelled to clean that out for her. And somebody else that was on the team came out and said, well, I don't know about that thing. I don't know if I'd spend any time on that thing. And I just had to clean it out for her. To the point that I was out there by myself cleaning up that and just weeping because I knew it mattered to her. And I knew it was okay. I knew it was okay. Come on in, Gwen. Gwen's going to be coming anyway. I don't know if you've been listening to what I've been talking about, but anyway. So I knew it was okay to clean it out, and I couldn't really explain it. I understand it now because of Jonathan. So he was talking about, and again, if you are just tagging in, you've got to go listen to the testimony of Jonathan Rumi. I shared it this morning when I did not know anything that I was going to say when I came in here. If you've been with me, I opened up the microphone at about 7:02, and I haven't stopped talking yet. I haven't done an ad. I haven't done any of my ads. I haven't done anything. You have not. And I will, but I got to unpack this because this is so huge. For all of you who are like, icon's bad. He talks about he talks about his dad is Egyptian. The name is Egyptian. Rumi's Egyptian. I love that because I just have so many Egyptian friends. You guys are so cool. I love y'all so much. And if you've been blessed to have a Coptic Christian family next to you, you are so fortunate. You're so fortunate because they're awesome. But anyway. So he was talking about his background. His mom's Irish Catholic, and so he was born. He goes, I was born in Hell's Kitchen in New York.
Wow.
Okay, that's where he's from, and he was talking about that calling of being an actor just early on. And he was talking about the time whenever it was just a lot of his relatives were getting married. Mm-hmm. So that was drawn, and his family was very, very Catholic,
right?
Because his dad was Greek Orthodox. Actually, he said he was baptized Greek Orthodox,
right? And
he said, but we just naturally fit in with the Catholic community, and so that's where we went,
right?
So he said that, he was getting drawn back into all the religious services around the weddings and things like that. And he says, I was a person that I've always prayed. I've always had just kind of this little dialogue. And as he said that, I thought, yeah, me too. And if you anyway, I'm not going to go there, but just some of the things he said just reminds me so much about the things I've written that are just dead on. But anyway,
they rang through with you.
Yeah. So anyway, he's talking about going into the Catholic Church and the icons and the candlelight and I just how the meaning. He goes, I felt like I could pray better when I was in that setting.
Yeah.
He goes, I just felt like I could pray better.
Right.
And so I felt drawn to that. So he goes, I would go into my little apartment and I had my little picture. He goes, I had a little thing, a little Jesus picture, a little icon, he called it.
Right.
And, but it just wasn't doing it for me. He talked about different icons and stuff. And he goes, I got to thinking, I wonder if there's some kind of a Orthodox icon. And if you've seen the one that he shares all the time, it is a Greek Orthodox icon of Christ, right? And he goes, I just kind of was praying about that. And he goes, I walk out and sitting on top of the mailbox is this. And he shows a picture of it.
Yeah.
And he's like, I think I'm being punked. This is weird.
My apartment's bugged.
Yeah. And so he's like, okay. So he brings that in. And so he goes, I want to understand why icons. What is it about icons?
Yeah.
And I've always kind of wondered the same thing because, like so many things that I'm going to go down a rabbit hole again. I was raised in Church of Christ that we did not sing Silent Night at Christmas because we don't know when Christ was born. We can't add to or take from the Word of God. We're not going to do that. But it felt so wrong to me when I would see Linus walk out on the stage in Peanuts.
Give his
and there
soliloquy.
was in the same country, shepherds abiding in the field. And it just took my breath away. I was like, what's wrong with that? So anyway, so I've come to peace with that too, and I don't want to go down that rabbit hole. So anyway, so that same thing was with me with icons. I was like, what's wrong with them?
Yeah.
He goes, I looked into the history of it. The icons were developed for uneducated people to bring them to the gospel of Jesus Christ.
If you go to an old church, all the stained glass windows are the story of Christ. That's how they learned. That's how they learned the Bible, is pictures.
Oh, y'all.
Yeah. Yeah.
Man. Yeah. When I listened to that, I was like, yep. And so I've got all these icons that my precious Egyptian friends have given me, and I'm like, bring it on, give me some more, because yes, it helps me too. And see, I think I've shared with you. I brought you the
menorah.
The menorah.
Yeah.
I was listening to one of Christy McClellan. I just love that sister. My goodness, she's so good, so anointed. And so is Jonathan. So many people that are in my life right now, breathing, helping me just understand better what God's calling on my life is.
Which is what we all need.
Yes. But you got to seek it, guys.
Yeah.
If you do not seek it, you will not find it.
Right.
And that's a message for somebody in my life that's not where he needs to be.
Yeah.
And if you'll seek him, you'll find him.
Yep.
But you got to want to seek him. And that's so many people, they've shut the door and it's like, that's just not true.
Right.
Yes, it is.
Yeah.
The heavens declare the glory of God. The skies proclaim the work of his hands. Day after day they pour forth fruit. Night after night they display knowledge. And the reason why we have all these graven images and all the things of the pagan gods is because they could look into the world. They could see the heavens declare the glory of God.
Yep.
But they didn't know the God, the I am.
Yeah, the
and so they tried to figure it out.
Yeah.
And that's the story of the Old Testament, y'all. Just oh, and by the way, I'm going to chase a rabbit here. Bible reading for today. What is today? The 10th?
Yes, today's the 10th.
If you're reading along with us, if you're staying with us, we're on Deuteronomy 28 through 29, Deuteronomy 28 through 29, and Psalms 62. Read your Bible, get in the Word, just get in it. Just get in your Word. Yeah. But so anyway, just seeing the profound understanding of that's why we have what we have with the icons is because people who could not read, if you remember, the early scriptures, the only way you got them would be to go and let somebody, because they were, number one, they were in Latin.
Right.
And so you couldn't read it. And if
number two, it wasn't available.
Yeah.
And when it was available, the Catholic Church would not let you have a Bible.
So many things.
That's the one thing that I was just amazed with my mother, because my mother was a faithful Bible reader.
Right.
She always had a Bible. And as I found it interesting as she got older. It was so sweet. As she got older, she would read a children's Bible.
Oh, wow.
Just very simple,
Yeah.
very, very plain. I still have that, that she left with me. So
Well, and I'll tell you before I'm going to pause here because I think this is a good place. But when we come back, I want to talk about a little bit more about the significance of icons and how Jonathan says it just gave him an atmosphere of prayer and also the candlelight.
Right.
Let's not forget to do that and the
Well,
didache.
it's like the praise and worship. I mean,
We're gonna just wrap all that together.
Yeah, it brings you into the present.
So let's not forget. So we're going to talk about the didache. We're going to talk about Christy
And you
and the
gotta see the movie.
candlelight. Huh?
You got to see the movie. I've seen it.
Oh, I
It's
know. I haven't seen it
fabulous.
yet. I'm going to see it this weekend. But we got to pause. Oh, I got to pause for a minute. Let's talk about my friends Barry and Rebecca Riches with the Exit Really Garden Gate team. Sean Elmore was popping up on comments a while ago. And if you were at the Open Door Pregnancy and Resource Center dinner on Monday night, you got to see a video that Barry did. He is just so good with working with the community and doing things. He helps me with my kiddos at Greenbrier because I've had an entire career in broadcasting, but I mean, I was a lazy talent, man. I wasn't the engineer and the person that knew all the tech, and so I'm having to really learn that. I know a lot of it, but I'm smart enough to know what I don't know, and they're bringing in drones and all these things, and Barry has just been awesome. Joy over at Epiphany has come in. I mean, he's been coming in helping me set up the TriCaster. My friend Todd Hibbs. So many that are helping me with this, but nonetheless, Barry has been awesome helping me out. He came over the other day and helped the kids fly a drone. I've got some drone footage of some stuff there at Greenbrier that my kids, they did every bit of it. Barry was just there in case we needed him. And so, he's just that kind of guy. So I mean, him and Rebecca, they just give so much. They're going to be a part of the Kilgore Station Bluegrass Festival, third weekend in May. Save the date. So why wouldn't you want them to help you out in real estate? Wouldn't you want to have them that team come in and give you a hand? Or you've got property that's just not getting any traction. Nobody's taking a look at it. We probably need some pictures. You probably need some video, maybe some drone footage. Man, get all that together for him and let him come out and reevaluate it and see if he'll get people looking at your stuff. Rebecca, one of the first in the area to be a seniors real estate specialist. They've been 27 years up in Cross Plains. They're Robertson Countyans, and they specialize in Robertson County properties, but they also buy and sell in the surrounding counties and across the state line in Kentucky. How can you get in touch with them? Call Rebecca at 615-504-7425, 615-504-7425, or go to sellwithbecky.com, sellwithbecky.com, or buy, BUI, robertsoncounty.com. Let them know I sent you. And thank them for sponsoring our little thing we call One Street Over. And if you want to be a part of this broadcast, this worldwide broadcast facility, get you some sponsors. Come in here, talk to LU, and get the gospel out. Help us do that. Be a part of it. And with all that said, so the didache. If you're not familiar with the didache, it's something that I have discovered because of Christy McClellan and the Gospel on the Ground. They talk about it. It's also, and if you go to the Newlands Bible, the Italy study, you'll hear about it in there. You'll hear probably more about it in the Italy study. But it's amazing because the early church, they always felt like the early church leaders, and I'm talking, in the last 1,000 years, they always felt like there was some kind of a guide from the apostles. Yes.
For the transition.
Because you can take, and she says, did she talk about Pompeii in the Gospel on the Ground?
I don't think she did not go into a lot of Italy study. This was more Israel. So I don't know that Gospel on the Ground is the same one.
Well, and I'm getting ready to do the Gospel on the Ground, so I'll let you know. But I think a lot of what's covered in the Italy study is in this. But she talks about Pompeii and how it gives us a snapshot, an absolute snapshot of what the early church was facing.
The Vegas of Italy.
Yeah.
Because
you've got those cities that Alexander the Great set up. You've got the Greco-Roman culture, right? You had the Greeks and then the Romans. The Romans were in power during Christ's time.
Right.
The Greeks were the ones who started that. And the Romans, when they conquered the Greeks, they're like, we kind of like what you're doing there. We're going to hang on to that. That's where you get Greco-Roman culture.
Right.
And so they hung on to all these cities that were just full of, it was
Decadence.
Vegas. And the Decapolis, that's what they're talking about, which means 10, but there were way more than 10 cities.
Right,
But the Decapolis, that's what they're talking about, are these cities. Christ grew up a few miles, I think 4 miles from one, and I forget the name of it, but he grew up next to one. That's probably where he did his tectoning.
Yes.
Okay? Anyway.
His stoneworking.
So, with all that said, and I forgot where I was going. So they, as the early church, they were dealing with the pagan influences. How do they go in and help somebody that's coming out of worshiping the idols
Right.
and sacrificing your children
Right.
to the gods and all this kind of thing? How do you convert them into a follower of the way in Jesus Christ?
The Didache helps us.
The
to know how
Didache
that-
helps
yeah.
us to understand that. And so the early church leaders in the last 1,000 years, they thought there's got to be something out there. And so they were pouring through scrolls that Constantine had. And there was a monk that found this excerpt that was titled the Didache, the teaching of the apostles. That's what Didache, the teachings. That's what Didache means. And so when they found it, everybody was like, wow. And when they published it, it sold 5,000 copies in a day, which
Right.
was unheard of at the time.
Yeah.
But then we don't hear about it. I believe it's because of the simplicity of it and the way it just breaks down. This is what it means to be a follower of the way, not what we've made the church into. Now,
Right.
I go to your church, be a part of your local church because you need your church.
Yes.
I can't function without my church family at Madison. They are my family. Epiphany's
Mm-hmm.
my crazy cousins. But I can't function without my church family.
Yeah.
And I respect the leadership and I abide by the leadership because I am a part of that fellowship.
Right.
But I don't necessarily agree
with all of
with
their
all the things we're
doctrines.
doing. I don't believe that we've got it right with women. I don't believe we've got it right with the music. I just think we've overthought it.
Yeah.
But to keep order in that body of believers,
right.
our elders say this is how we're going to conduct worship. I love them. They're my family. I'm going to abide by their wishes because I have set them apart as leaders in my
Right.
life. And so I'm going to do that. But I do not agree with them. I think everybody knows that, okay? But it's all good. So with all that said, the Didache is a thing that tells us what the early church was dealing with. So Sweet Gwen has found these little bitty pamphlets you can get for $1, and I keep them with me and hand them out all the time. So I had this guy, and you'll see where I'm going in just a minute. I know I could really use another hour, ILU, but I got to go to school. I'm so sorry, Gwen. You've come in here, and I've just been running my mouth.
We could come in an hour earlier.
Yeah, we could. Today I could have. Because, man, I was on fire this morning. I was like, give
Yeah.
me my microphone.
Yeah.
So, so this guy comes to CR on Wednesday night, and he's just digging through the Word. And he's talking history, and I said, you got to read the Didache. And
he
I hand
says-
it to him.
He didn't know what it was.
Yeah, but the first thing on the back, it's got something about the Catholic Church. And he's like, I want this.
Yeah.
Same thing with a lot of people with the icons. I don't want this.
Right. Yeah.
And I say all that, but then after he read it, he's like, I like this. This is so simple. And I told him, I said, you got to remember, we have Scripture because of the Catholic Church.
Yeah.
So much of it was
They have
preserved
got
because of the monks
right.
and the people
Yes.
who
Monasteries
went
and all,
over
yes.
to
Yeah.
where are the Dead Sea Scrolls from? Not McPay.
Qumran.
Qumran, thank you.
Yeah.
Qumran. Because of Qumran, what we found, I mean, oh my goodness, they were scribing. They would go, when you think about the people you had, what did
The-
they think?
The
The-
Essenes.
Yes, the Essenes, they were scribing. That's all they did.
Yes.
And if it were not for them,
No,
they would not have them.
They were not Catholic.
They were not Catholic, but they were
a
early.
Jewish sect that they believe that John the Baptist is from.
Right, but so they were early scribes, and they think that's where
Right.
Qumran and all that came from.
Right.
But also, so yeah, really, okay, so what I just said about owing it to the Catholic Church, maybe not so much, but the preservation of it, yes.
They have preserved.
Preservation of it is such a
It's-
huge part of that.
yes.
So I really misspoke there. But when you really understand the history of the church and how Constantine came in and the
Yeah.
things that he did, it did preserve the Word. And the fact that we did have the Essenes and all of that scribing out in
Right.
Qumran, that was before Catholicism. But nonetheless, we do owe a lot to the Catholic Church. Now,
Yes.
they perverted it in a way that, but we've done the same thing.
Yes. All
We've done the
religions
same
have.
thing. We've all
No,
done
yeah,
it.
Yeah.
And it's all so simple. And so I kind of come back around to go watch Jonathan Rumi's testimony because you're going to get all this and about the reason why the icons are important, because it was a way to teach the gospel to people who could not read.
Right.
And if you're a person that couldn't read and you just felt the Spirit on you, do you think you might paint a picture?
Probably.
Maybe.
Yeah.
Do you think you might sit down and play something on the harp or the drums or something and sing a song and do some more? And we were like, well, you can't do that because we can't have instruments in the church, and you certainly can't do it because you're a girl. I'm sorry.
A girl who plays the piano? No way.
I love y'all, but we got to rethink this
Yeah.
stuff. And I mean, not rethink it in our mind, but prayerfully,
Read David.
prayerfully study to show ourselves approved before
Yeah.
men.
Read
Because
read about David.
I just, yeah.
He was.
Oh, so many things, so many
Yeah.
things. Hi, sis. What do you want to say? I'm done. That's all I have. Oh, we got to talk about the light, though. We need to do that still. We need to do the significance of light, because Jonathan talks about the
Oh, okay.
candlelight and
Yes.
brings him
Well,
in.
the
But I'm going to
Jewish-
give you the floor for a minute. Don't let me forget to do that, though.
Jewish households on Shabbat when it starts Friday night.
That's Sabbath. Shabbat.
Yes, the mother of the family will light a candle
Yeah.
and pray over the family when they start the Sabbath every Friday night.
And the woman's the one that has to do it.
Yes.
So,
yes,
I'm just-
we're the ones required to do that. So.
Yep. So anyway.
So candles hold a significance. I mean,
Yes, they do.
you know,
And so I tell
and
you.
it's basically, for me, it's just reminders. We all need reminders. You know, you briefly touched on the movie The Jesus Revolution.
Right.
I went and saw it. Great
Okay.
movie. I did not know that Greg Laurie was part of it. Greg Laurie is the harvest preacher out in California. You'd know him if
Oh,
you saw
yeah.
him.
He's the, yeah.
But I mean, this was part of his conversion.
Yeah.
You know, this was all the movie shows he was in a military school and just wasn't getting it in the military school. I mean,
Right.
he was just not connecting with it. And he joined, you know, he sees a girl, and this cute girl, you know, and so that it starts his journey. But you know, you brought up his last name is Frisbee. I don't remember what his first name is.
Is it Lance?
It could be.
I can't remember.
we can look it up.
I can't remember, but
But you know, I didn't know about his background, and when
Yeah.
you research his background,
not-
the first thing that I think of is, you know, Jesus with the woman caught in adultery.
yeah,
Okay, first of all, it's only the woman that's brought to him, not the man.
right.
And he says, "Who among you is without sin and can cast the first stone?" So when I heard about this guy's background, it was like, okay, who among us, this day and age, can cast the first stone?
Amen.
If you see what he did and what God does with broken people, there you go.
Yes.
I mean, it's a great movie. I was 10 at the time, so I don't remember any of this.
Yeah.
I just, you just don't pay attention to stuff like that when
See,
you're
I
10. so-
did, and I remember. I think because of Kenneth.
Yeah.
You know, losing Kenneth in Vietnam.
Right.
And hearing the disdain for Vietnam from
Right.
the hippies.
Yeah.
I hated the hippies.
Yeah.
Oh, I mean, I would get angry. If I saw anybody that was a hippie,
Yeah.
I mean, I was
See,
angry. And so anything that
and
came
I
out of the
just-
hippie movement, I don't
Yeah,
want nothing to do
yeah.
with.
I had just come back from Japan, so
Right.
maybe
Yeah.
that had to, because the late 60s, I don't really remember the moon landing.
Oh, wow. Okay.
You know, people say, "Oh
Yeah.
yeah, everybody was gathered." Well, I was halfway around the world in Japan. I
Yeah,
don't,
true. Yeah, I
I
hadn't
don't
thought
remember.
about that.
I don't
Yeah.
remember. I don't remember. You know, Robert Kennedy being shot and Martin Luther King
Right.
being. I don't remember any of that. None of that's part of my lexicon. Kind of remember the Kennedy assassination. That was kind of what we left. That was kind of the last thing that I remember before we left for Japan. And that was more of a feeling than an actual memory, because I remember it as just a blanket being thrown over everything.
Yeah.
You know, everything got quiet. Everything got real still. You know, and for that 2-week period, you know, it was just, I mean, I remember the feeling more than details. But I remember my dad coming home early, and I thought that was kind of weird. But yeah, you know, it's just to look back and see how that started, and you know, the Kelsey Grammer person that he portrays. It's interesting how it just kind of melded together, and then you've got this, you know, thing like Asbury, Kentucky, you know, that just kind of took
Yeah.
over, and it's just it. I mean, yeah, it's the timing is incredible.
Yes, it is.
The
Yes, it
timing
is.
is-
With
is-
all the
yeah.
things that are going on. We're
Yeah.
on the edge of it, guys, and
Yeah.
it's happening in many places, but I believe it's going to be worldwide. I really
I
do.
pray
I
that
believe
it
it's
is,
going to be
yeah.
a huge harvest, and I have a harvest I'm anticipating.
Yes. Yes.
So, but we do need to take a break here. I'm talking with Gwen Harder, and if you've been listening to me, I'm looking on here, and it doesn't look like anybody's with me. I guess they got tired of listening to me, but that's okay. I don't care. I did this for him, nobody else. So let's pause for a second. Let's talk about Corbin Creek Greenhouse Gifts and Gardening Center. I talked to Amy yesterday, bless her heart. They had a time out there. They had a lot of wind come through, blew off the plastic on the houses. If you go and see the pictures and the images of how things were going on out there, and it looks like things inside the houses look okay, but they had to reattach the coverings and all of those things. It's been just such a headache and a lot of work. So go out there and talk to them and get ready for spring, because they sure are. They are ready for things to calm down. They're still in their winter hours, they're open 10 through 4. Monday through Saturday, and Sunday they're open from 1 to 4. I talked to her. I've got to replenish my CBD supply. I can tell it when I'm not taking it. I've ran out, and oh my goodness, the aches come back on me like crazy. That overall arthritic ache, it helps me so much with my inflammation from arthritis. My doctor told me to get on this, and it is a game changer for me. It may be for you as well. Brian Pooley will testify that if you're going to plant a garden, get all your bedding plants from Corbin. He says it's the best garden he ever had last year. They've got a couple of dates we want you to save the dates for. They've got their Full Bloom Festival that's happening April 1st, April Fool's Day, at 9 a.m. The Full Bloom Festival is going to happen at Corbin Creek Greenhouse, and then they're going to have Customer Appreciation Day, which is so much fun. They have planting stations for the kiddos. They can create something great for Mother's Day. And they're going to have specials just throughout the greenhouses, free hot dogs for all, but it's Customer Appreciation Day, and that's happening on May 13th at 9 a.m. May 13th at 9 a.m. So check all these things out with my friends. Miss Amy and her mom, Miss Jane's out there as well working. She just blows my mind, Miss Jane does. They are just so wonderful and a great family, and you're going to love getting to know them at Corbin Creek Greenhouse Gifts and Gardening Center. They're at 4920 Highway 161. In Springfield. Give them a call, 384-3185, 384-3185. Let them know U-Turn sent you. And thank them for sponsoring One Street Over. All right, we got to talk about the light thing, and then we got to go talk about Cumberland Connect. We haven't done that yet. One of our sponsors.
My favorite.
So,
Sponsor.
Cumberland Connect. We all just love it. But I want the thing with what Jonathan talks about in his testimony. He says that he felt himself just drawing closer in prayer when he was around the icons and around the candlelight and all this. So Christy McClellan has a lesson. Go to Newland's Bible. You can download the Sabbath lesson. And it's I want to say 7-part series maybe. Mm-hmm. And when I heard it, she talked about how that when you go into a yeshiva, that's a place to study in Israel, you will often find that they will have candles lit.
It was connected to the synagogue.
Mm-hmm. Exactly. Mm-hmm. And it's their way of inviting the Holy Spirit in.
Right.
It's not that they will have light and everything else, but they'll also have candlelight, because it's just like saying, come on in, Holy Spirit, come in. And so that is a significant thing too. And so when I can sit down with my Bible and turn the pages and do my daily reading and study with my candles lit, it's just wonderful. And so that, again, is the reason why Jonathan says the icons, the candlelight, all of that is a thing, because it just draws us in.
Right.
And so it's not that we're worshiping the candle, we're not worshiping the icon. No. It's drawing us into a space.
Right.
It's just like, the prayer closet movement that they had for a while.
Well, and
it's the same thing.
It's the fish icon.
Yes.
To show who you are.
Yes. Mm-hmm.
It's just part of being, this is who I am.
My friend Kathy Harden that died of cancer, she met the Egyptians, and she heard the story about why they wear a cross on their wrist. And she called me. The reason why I got this is because Kathy, she called me a couple of days later, and she goes, I want to go get a tattoo.
She needed a tattoo buddy.
Yeah. And I was like, what did David say? He don't care. And so she goes, I'm alive today because of the miracle of God. I shouldn't still be alive. She had cancer all over. And she says, when I get, because she knew eventually she would get, unless he just completely healed her, and he healed her and brought her home. Mm-hmm. But she says, if I ever get to where I can't declare my miracle,
right,
I need to have something that shows it, or the rocks will cry out.
Right.
So she goes, I got to get a cross on my wrist, just like the Egyptians do.
Yeah.
So that's what started that. And then I went to my Egyptian friends and said, what do you think about that? Can we do that? Well, it's so funny when we suggested that. One of them said, oh, I've got a 2-year-old that needs one. Can I go? I'm like, don't tattoo your babies in America. Don't do that.
Yeah, I don't think you can.
Don't do that. They Department of Children's Services will be going, did you tattoo your baby? It's a religious thing, okay?
Yes.
But anyway, any parting thoughts as we get ready to go into our last break and head out of here?
I would, yes. Go see the movie. You said you were going to go see the movie.
I'm going to see the movie.
It's done triple of what Hollywood thought it would. So
of course it did.
So there. I think people
We want
are,
Jesus movies, y'all.
people are
want spiritual
searching
movies.
for the truth.
Yes, they are.
They are so tired of the lies.
Yep.
They want the truth. And this is a great movie to find it with.
And go and I'm begging you, go and watch this testimony from Jonathan Rumi, and he talks about how that people are like, you're playing Jesus. He goes, I'm a man.
Yes.
I'm a man.
Yes.
And he doesn't lose sight of that.
Right.
He doesn't lose sight of that.
Right.
And the humility of this man is beautiful. And just pray for him because he's got a big job stepping into the role of Jesus Christ. Are you kidding me?
And if you know the story
Wow.
of Christ, what's coming up is just going to be...
It's going to be difficult.
It's going to be tough.
It's going to be tough.
It's going to be
It's
tough.
gonna be really
to do that.
tough.
Yeah.
All right, guys, let's go out on our Cumberland Connected. How's it going with your...
Oh,
How long was your power out?
We did not lose power.
How in the world? Wow, that's crazy. Because we did through Friday to Sunday.
No.
And when we turned the generator on, I thought, okay, the lines look fine. So it was something beyond us that had caused our power to be out.
Right.
And so I thought, I wonder if Cumberland Connect will work when I plugged it into the generator and I had internet.
There you go.
So I didn't have power, but I had internet.
Yeah.
Isn't that crazy?
Yeah.
So it's a utility now. That's
Right.
why Cumberland Cumberland Connect is powered by CEMC. And if you're a Cumberland Electric customer, good news. You're going to have high-speed internet from Cumberland Connect. If you want it, all you got to do is call them, 800-987-2362, 800-987-2362, or cumberlandconnect.org, cumberlandconnect.org. Check availability. It may already be available in your town. And you're like, man, I just really struggle financially. I can't afford it. Well, because it's now a public utility and it's not a need, it's not a want, it's a need.
Yeah.
Affordable Connectivity Program has been developed to provide qualifying households with monthly credit to help them pay for internet services. And if you're eligible, you may receive a credit of up to $30 per month toward broadband service. All you gotta do is reach out. I mean, $80 will get you a gig. I was like, no power, but I had a gig. Why not? You know,
You could
It's
watch.
fun.
You could watch The Chosen in the dark.
Oh yes, absolutely. All right, guys, but reach out to them today. Cumberland Connect, 1-800-987-2362, 1-800-987-2362, or cumberlandconnect.org, and say thank you for sponsoring One Street Over, one of our full-time sponsors, and a great friend of this program, One Street Over. So, parting thoughts?
Join us in Deuteronomy in your Bible.
Yes.
Yeah.
Go and open your Bible. Reach out to Rachel Culver at Bethlehem Baptist. Be praying for her. I think the wedding's this weekend. Is it this weekend or next weekend?
I don't remember.
Her son's getting married. She's mother of the groom.
Yes.
My advice to any mother of the groom, do what you're told.
Yeah.
Do what you're told.
Look pretty and
Yes,
just
do what you're told.
Yeah.
Do what you're told. All right. And that's it for us. God bless you. Have a wonderful day. This is 1100 WSGI.